You've done it again. You watched the trade set up perfectly. You waited for the entry. You got in at exactly the right level. And then you exited early. You watched the price keep moving in the exact direction you called without you on it. And the worst part? You knew. You knew while you were clicking the exit button that you were making a mistake, but something inside you wouldn't let you hold it. And you told yourself it was fear. You've been telling yourself that for months, maybe years. I just need to manage my fear better. I need more discipline. I need to stop being scared. But here's what nobody is telling you. It's not fear. Fear is the surface emotion. Fear is what you feel, but fear is not the reason. Fear is the symptom. And if you keep treating the symptom without understanding the cause, you will exit early for the rest of your trading life. Because what's actually happening inside your mind when you close that trade too soon has a name. It has a psychological identity. It has roots in your nervous system, your childhood, your personality structure, and the way your brain was literally wired to process uncertainty. And once you understand what it actually is, you won't just feel better about your trading. You will trade differently. You will hold differently. You will think differently. So stay with me for the next 25 minutes, because what I'm about to walk you through is the psychology that the most profitable traders in the world quietly understand, and that most retail traders will never hear explained like this. This is the reason you always exit too early, and it is not fear.
Number 1, it's not fear, it's premature closure, and your brain is addicted to it. Let me ask you something. When you exit a trade early and lock in a small profit, what happens inside your body in that exact moment? There's a release, isn't there? A kind of relief, a settling, like something that was wound up tight just loosened, like you can finally breathe again. That feeling has a name in neuroscience. It's called a dopamine resolution response, and it is one of the most powerful involuntary forces your brain is capable of producing. Here's what's happening. When you're in a live trade, your brain enters a state of open-loop tension. It's processing risk, uncertainty, and the possibility of loss simultaneously. And the human brain, your brain, is not designed to stay in an open loop. It is designed to close them. This is called the Zeigarnik effect, a psychological principle that says your brain will experience active, low-level stress around any unfinished task, any open situation, any unresolved outcome. It's why you remember the trade you didn't close more vividly than the 10 trades you did. It's why you can't stop thinking about a position when you're away from your screens. Your brain is not tolerating the open loop. It is urgently looking for a way to close it. And when you click that exit button, when you take that small profit and get out, you close the loop. Your brain exhales, dopamine releases, and your nervous system logs that moment as a success. Not a trading success, a biological success. This is the problem. Your brain doesn't care whether the trade went to full target. Your brain cares that the tension resolved, and it will repeat any behavior that reliably resolves tension, regardless of whether that behavior is good for your account. You have been rewarding premature closure for so long that your brain has built a neural pathway specifically designed to get you out of trades early. It's not fear driving you out. It's a learned addiction to resolution. And it compounds, because every time you exit early and the trade continues without you, your brain doesn't always register that as a failure. Sometimes it registers it as relief that you got out before it could reverse. Your mind finds a way to justify the exit, to protect the behavior, because the behavior feels good in the moment. This is what psychologists call a reinforcement loop, and it is quietly destroying your trading performance from the inside. The solution is not willpower. The solution is not telling yourself to hold longer. The solution is understanding that your brain has been trained by your own decisions to prefer the small exit, and retraining it requires you to consciously, deliberately, repeatedly let the trade stay open past the point where your body wants to close it. Not to prove something, not to be stubborn, but to build a new neural association,
one where staying in the trade is what your nervous system learns to reward. That process takes time, but it starts with recognizing that what you feel in that moment is not fear. It is addiction to closure. And the first step out of any addiction is seeing it clearly for what it is.
Number 2, the phantom loss. How your brain calculates risk that doesn't exist yet. Let me paint a scene. You're up 40 pips on a trade. Your target is 80. The trade is moving in your direction. Your setup is intact. Your stop has never been touched. By every rational measure, you are winning. And yet, your mind is already calculating the loss of the profit you haven't secured yet. You start thinking, what if it pulls back to break even? What if I give it all back? What if this is the top? And suddenly, 40 pips of open profit starts to feel like 40 pips you are about to lose. This is not fear of losing real money. You haven't lost anything. You are in profit. What you are experiencing is something called loss aversion asymmetry, a bias documented extensively by Daniel Kahneman and Tversky in their landmark research on prospect theory. Here is the finding that should stop you cold. Psychologically, the pain of losing something feels approximately 2 to 2.5 times more powerful than the pleasure of gaining the same thing. 2.5 times. Which means when you have 40 pips of open profit and you feel the anxiety of potentially losing it, your brain is processing that potential loss with nearly 2.5 times the emotional weight of how good it felt to gain those 40 pips in the first place. You are not being irrational. You are responding exactly as your brain was designed to respond. But you are responding to a phantom, a loss that has not happened, a loss that statistically, based on your setup, is less likely to happen than the trade reaching your target. And here's where it gets even more interesting.
When you are in that elevated anxiety state, when loss aversion is fully activated, your brain's prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for rational decision-making, begins to go offline. You lose access to the analytical mind that took the trade in the first place. You start making decisions from the amygdala, the threat response center of the brain. You're no longer a trader. You're a human animal protecting what's yours from an imaginary predator. And the amygdala has one directive in that state: eliminate the threat, end the exposure, close the position, get safe. So you exit. Not because the setup changed, not because the trade invalidated, not because your system said to close it, but because your brain, hijacked by phantom loss calculation, made the decision for you before your rational mind could intervene. The traders who hold through these moments are not braver. They are not tougher. They have simply built a different relationship with open profit. They have trained themselves, through journaling, through review, through deliberate repetition, to recognize the phantom loss feeling as information about their emotional state, not information about the trade. When you learn to say, this anxiety I'm feeling right now is not trade data. This is my amygdala running a threat simulation. You create space between the feeling and the action. And in that space is where every great trading decision lives.
Number 3, your identity as a trader is quietly overriding your strategy. This one goes deeper than most people are willing to look, because this isn't just about what you do in the trade. This is about who you believe you are. Here is a question I want you to sit with. What kind of trader do you secretly believe you are? Not the trader you want to be, not the trader you tell other people you are. The trader you believe, at the deepest, most private level of your psychology, that you actually are. Because here's the truth that cognitive psychology has documented through decades of research on identity and behavior. Human beings are compulsively consistent with their self-image. We are not driven primarily by goals. We are driven by identity, by the story we tell about ourselves. And we will unconsciously sabotage any behavior that contradicts that story, no matter how much we consciously want to change. If somewhere in your psychology, from your early experiences, your first losses, your formative traits, you developed an identity as someone who loses, as someone who gets unlucky, as someone who always gives profit back,
then your mind will manufacture the exit that validates that story. Not out of weakness, out of psychological consistency. Leon Festinger's research on cognitive dissonance showed us this decades ago. When our behavior contradicts our self-belief, the discomfort is so powerful that we will alter our behavior before we alter our belief.
Think about what that means for trading. If you believe at a core level that you don't deserve large wins, or that big profits always slip through your fingers, or that the market always takes back what it gives you, then sitting inside a winning trade that is approaching a large profit will create intolerable internal dissonance. And your mind will resolve that dissonance the fastest way it knows how. It will get you out. It will find a reason, a small wick against you, a news headline, a gut feeling, an almost rational-sounding justification, and you will exit. Not because of the trade, because of the story. This is why discipline programs fail without identity work. You can have the best system in the world, the clearest rules, the most refined process, and your identity will silently override every single one of them in the moments that matter most. The work here is uncomfortable. It requires you to examine where that identity came from, to trace the belief, I always exit too early, I always let winners slip, back to its origin, to ask not just what you do, but why you believe you are someone who does it. Because when you change the identity, the behavior changes with it, not through force, through congruence. A trader who genuinely believes at their core that they execute their system cleanly, that trader does not need to fight the urge to exit early. The urge barely arises, because the exit would feel like a violation of who they are. Build the identity first. The discipline will follow. Number 4, the silent weight of what you've already lost. I want to talk about something that almost never gets addressed in trading psychology content, and that is the emotional carry weight of your past trades. Here is what I mean. You are never trading just this trade. You are always trading this trade plus everything that has happened before it. Every loss you haven't fully processed. Every premature exit you still feel embarrassed about. Every time the market moved without you. Every account drawdown that hasn't fully healed. You carry all of that into every single position. And here is where it becomes relevant to exiting early. When a trader has a history of painful reversals, when they have lived through the experience of watching a winning trade turn into a loss, or worse, into a significant drawdown, their nervous system doesn't forget it. Even when the conscious mind moves on, the body remembers. This is what somatic psychologists call a trauma imprint. And in trading, even losses that don't qualify as financial trauma can leave psychological residue that influences future behavior. So when you are in a trade that is profitable and that profit starts to feel significant, your body scans its memory bank and finds the record of the last time a significant profit disappears. And it activates a threat response, not based on current conditions, but based on past pain. Peter Levine's work in somatic experiencing teaches us that the nervous system stores unresolved threat experiences and replays them in similar future contexts. You are not just reacting to this trade, you are reacting to every trade that looked like this and ended badly. And the exit, the early, unnecessary exit, is your nervous system's attempt to protect you from a pain it has already lived through once.
This is not weakness. This is not a character flaw. This is a nervous system doing exactly what nervous systems are built to do, protecting the organism from repeated harm. But here's the problem. The market has changed. Your skill has evolved. The setup is different. The context is different. And yet your nervous system is applying a protection protocol designed for a past version of you to the present moment. The traders who break through this pattern don't do it by being tougher or by suppressing the feeling. They do it by completing the emotional cycle that previous losses left unfinished. They journal the loss. They review it honestly. They extract the lesson, and critically, they release the emotional charge. Because unprocessed emotional charge doesn't disappear, it accumulates, and it will discharge eventually,
usually at the worst possible moment in a live trade. The antidote is not courage in the moment of the trade. The antidote is emotional processing outside of trading hours. Building a practice of reviewing not just the technical data of your trades, but the emotional data. How did that loss feel? What did it activate? What did you tell yourself? Where is that belief still living in your body? When you process the past, you free the present. And when the present is free, you can hold the trade.
Number 5, you've never actually defined what holding means to you. This final point is the most practical, and for many traders, it will be the most immediately impactful. Because here is a question that most traders cannot answer clearly. When you are in a trade, what specifically are the conditions under which you should stay in, and what specifically are the conditions under which you should exit? Not generally, not vaguely, specifically. Because here is what I observe in the psychology of early exits. The moment of doubt, the moment your finger hovers over the exit button, is almost never a moment of clear rule violation. It's a moment of ambiguity, a moment where your rules are vague enough that exiting could be justified. And ambiguity, for the human mind, is not neutral. Ambiguity activates anxiety, and anxiety, as we've already established, drives premature closure. This is what psychologists studying decision-making under uncertainty call ambiguity aversion, a close cousin of loss aversion. When humans face situations where the rules are unclear, they experience a measurable increase in stress hormones, and they respond to that stress by seeking the fastest path to certainty. For a trader, the fastest path to certainty is exiting. The trade is closed, the outcome is defined, the ambiguity is gone. Your lack of clearly defined exit rules is not just a strategy problem, it is a psychological trap. You have built a system that, in its vagueness, guarantees the emotional conditions for early exit.
The most psychologically stable traders I have studied share one common characteristic. Their rules are almost uncomfortably specific. Not exit when it looks like it's reversing. That's a feeling masquerading as a rule. But rather, I exit when price closes below the 8 EMA on the time frame of the trade. I exit when this specific pattern invalidates. I exit at my predefined stop level and not before. When your rules are that specific, there is no moment of ambiguity. There is no space for anxiety to flood in and override your judgment. The decision was already made before you entered the trade. In the live trade, you are simply observing and executing a decision that your calm, analytical self already made. This is what Mark Douglas called thinking in probabilities. You are not making decisions under pressure. You are executing decisions that were made under calm. And the psychological difference between those two states is enormous. Build your specific exit criteria. Write them down. Post them somewhere visible. And before every trade, read them. Not as a ritual, as a reminder of the decision you already made, so that when the anxiety comes, and it will come, you have something concrete to anchor to. Because a vague rule in a high-pressure moment is not a rule. It's an invitation for your emotions to take the wheel. And your emotions, left unchecked in a live trade, will exit early every time.
The summary, putting it all together. Let me bring this full circle. You exit trades early. You have been telling yourself it's fear, and maybe fear is what it feels like. But now you understand what it actually is. It is a neurological addiction to the relief of closing an open loop, the Zeigarnik effect pulling you toward resolution whether the trade is finished or not. It is phantom loss calculation. Your amygdala generating 2.5 times the emotional weight for a loss that hasn't happened yet, hijacking your rational mind before it can intervene. It is identity override, a deep psychological story about the kind of trader you are, quietly manufacturing the behavior that confirms it, regardless of what your rules say. It is unprocessed emotional residue, the nervous system memory of past losses replaying their protection response in the present moment, even when the present moment doesn't warrant it. And it is ambiguity, vague rules creating the psychological conditions for anxiety, and anxiety creating the conditions for premature closure.
None of these are fear. None of these are weakness. None of these are problems of discipline in the way most people think about discipline. They are psychological patterns, and psychological patterns, unlike character flaws, can be understood, mapped, and deliberately rewired. The path forward is not to grit your teeth and hold longer. The path forward is to understand your own psychology well enough that the conditions for early exit stop being created in the first place. Journal your emotional state before and after every trade, not just the result, the feeling. Where was the anxiety? When did the urge to exit arrive? What was the thought that accompanied it? Do the identity work. Ask yourself honestly what story you carry about your trading, and begin, slowly, deliberately, to tell a different one. Not through affirmations, but through evidence, through the small, consistent execution of your rules.
Process your past losses. Don't just review the chart. Review the emotion. Give the loss somewhere to complete itself outside of the trading session so it doesn't discharge inside one. Define your rules so precisely that ambiguity is not an option in the live trade. And when you feel the urge to exit early, and you will, pause for just 3 seconds. Name what you're feeling. This is phantom loss calculation. This is my nervous system running a past pattern. This is not trade data. 3 seconds is all you need, because in 3 seconds, the prefrontal cortex can re-engage, rational thought can return, and you can make the decision from your system rather than from your stress response. This is not a skill you build in a day. It is a practice, a slow, honest, sometimes frustrating practice of learning to understand your own psychology more clearly than the market. But every great trader who holds through the hard moments, every trader who watches their target get hit cleanly and feels only quiet satisfaction, they are not operating from a different talent. They are operating from a different level of self-knowledge. That level of self-knowledge is available to you. You are already closer to it than you think, because you have just spent 25 minutes looking honestly at the patterns that have been running your trading without your conscious permission. That is not a small thing. That is the beginning of a different kind of trader.
If this spoke to something you've been experiencing, if you recognized yourself in any part of this, then you already know that this kind of psychology work is rare in the trading world. And if it's rare, it means finding it when you can matters. Subscribe if you haven't already, because this channel exists for exactly this kind of conversation. The honest, uncomfortable, deeply psychological ones that don't show up in strategy tutorials or indicator breakdowns. Share this with a trader who needs to hear it, the one who talks about their exits the way you used to talk about yours. And leave a comment telling me which of these 5 patterns resonated most deeply with you. I read every single one. Because trading is not just about the market, it is about you. And the more clearly you see yourself, the more clearly you will see the trade. See you in the next one.